Thank you for joining us for live paranormal radio. From the paranormal to the unexplained, it all happens here. It all happens here. Looking to enhance your radio experience? Participate in our live video chat 24/7 with our live paranormal radio show hosts and other like-minded people. Live. Paranormal.com, the only interactive social chat room supported by Full Interaction Media. Stop by now and join the fun. Stop by now and join the fun.
This is John Temporelli, co-author and editor of Heaven Can You Hear Me by the late famed Fox sighting psychic and legendary paranormal researcher Peter James.
This is the ghost host, Sophia Temporelli, and
you are listening to My Darkest Hour with Stefan Brigati on LiveParanormal.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of My Darkest Hour right here on LiveParanormal.com and History FM Radio. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Tonight I have a very special guest. Someone I had a chance to do some investigating with over the past few series of events that I've had a chance to go to, Virginia City and so forth. So I'd like to bring him on the show. This is Haunted Mario Bernal, and he's a paranormal investigator and researcher as well. And he also hosts a podcast program called the Haunted Mario Paranormal Podcast. You can check him out at www.hauntedmario.com. So we're going to talk tonight a little bit about paranormal experiences, of course, and what brought him into the realm of the paranormal field as far as getting started in research. So let's go ahead and bring him on the show.
All right, thank you very much.
Hey, Mario, are you out there?
Yes,
awesome,
sir.
Man. Can you hear us pretty good? Awesome.
Yeah, I can hear you great.
So how I usually do the show is I start with a lot of the history, the background. Everybody seems to have their own story, how they got involved in the paranormal. So for all the listeners out there, I'd like for them to be able to hear your story because it might pertain to their story. They might have similar circumstances. So if you could start by telling us a little bit about your first beginning experiences with the paranormal.
Sure, and first I want to thank you very much for having me on the show. I mean, I've been a fan for over a year now. I came across your show while looking for podcasts on the paranormal, and yours caught my attention right off the bat. So thank you very much for having me here. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here. But as far as me and the paranormal, I actually started off as a skeptic. I was more of a skeptic for many years, but I enjoyed watching the shows on, different TV networks such as Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, My Ghost Stories, shows like that, just for the entertainment value. And that, the paranormal world always interested me to a certain degree. But I never truly believed in everything that I saw on TV, or even, others' accounts of their experiences with the paranormal. So the weird story of how I got into it was basically we had a dog that passed away, and the dog was very important to us. He was like family. So we went and we got tattoos in his honor. And the tattoos that we got had his name written in the Enochian code, which is otherwise known as the angelic alphabet. So we thought it would be a good way to honor him. And so after some time, I became interested or curious about the Enochian code, and I tried to do some research on it. And around that time, I came across Haunted Orange County, and they were doing a lecture on the Enochian code and spiritualism and the paranormal from way back in the 1920s and the 1930s. So just gave it a shot, and we went to the lecture, and learned about all the things that they were lecturing about the paranormal world back then. And Ernie Alonso, who was the owner of Haunted Orange, had some flyers out on a table where he was promoting a paranormal investigation event with his group at the Graver Olive House, which you have been there quite a few times already and have investigated there. And you can attest to how haunted that place is, but it sparked our interest, and we gave it a shot, and we bought our tickets, and we went, and that's where we had our first paranormal experience. And it was actually with Don Staggs, who you've had on the show before. He's a psychic medium. We were doing an EVP session in the loft area, and it was the first time that I had ever heard live review of an EVP. And to be honest, as a skeptic, I didn't expect to hear anything. And during the EVP session, we were very diligent about tagging noises and tagging sounds, and if someone was coughing, sneezing, whatever it may be, just so that we could make sure that what we were capturing was as legitimate as possible. And so we did a live review, and he hooked up the recorder right up to a speaker, and that was the first time that I had heard a live voice of something that we had not heard at the time. And I believe we had been in the vat room before going to the loft, and my wife Cassie had seen the shadow creeper that's purported to haunt the vat room. And so when we were doing our EVP session, I just asked, did anyone from the vat room follow us up here? And then shortly after that, you hear a breathy voice say yes in response to my question. And that blew me away. Essentially the first, my first real experience with the paranormal. And from then on, it's been a journey, doing these investigations from time to time and getting to meet all the people in the paranormal world. But it's been a great, great adventure.
That's great, and you've been to a lot of great places. I know that because I've seen you plenty of places. And what's interesting about the old Graber house is it is very haunted, on different levels. I mean, they've even have reports of an alien being there and a couple of strange phenomenon-related events. But also, when we're talking about being up in the loft, that's really a great experience in itself because so much is happening up there. And last time we were there was, I think, last summer, and it was pretty warm. And you were able to feel it's hot, but you hit these ice patches, these air pockets that were just ice cold. And you could, the little boy that's supposed to be running around there, we could pretty much feel him running through the room and kind of going to his little spot and moving around everybody because this ice patch is moving around you, and it's super hot. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about the Graver Olive House, and we've investigated it on 5 different occasions. Every single time we've investigated it, we've come back with really good EVP evidence. That seems to be the most prominent way of capturing paranormal activity there is through EVP. And I'm really big on EVP. I love to analyze audio, and every time we do an investigation, that's the first thing that I go to. I can't wait to analyze all of the recordings that we have, and especially in parts where we've tagged areas where we think we heard a disembodied voice or a knock or a sound, and go back and actually capture it on the recorder. It's a great experience, and the Graver Olive House holds a really special place in our hearts as far as investigating goes, I never pass up an opportunity to go there. And yeah, you're right. The entire property has different pockets of activity happening in different places. I mean, even the ground behind that big barn area where the truck is, all those areas back there, those are just as haunted as the vat room and the loft. And surprisingly enough, a lot of the EVPs that we've captured have been intelligent responses. So I think that the craziest thing about the Graber Olive House, and for those that have never been there, it's located in downtown or in Old Town, Ontario, California, and it's just essentially an olive, I guess it would be an olive distribution center, not really a
packaging plant area. They were packaging them and selling them for the summer. Yeah, the summer olives.
Right, and you would never think that it's haunted, but it's been there for, I think, over 100 years. And the weirdest thing about it is that there are no reported deaths on the property itself, yet there's this plethora of paranormal activity all the time there. And from people that have visited the location to just the people that work there, and even the current owner that lives on the property, they've all experienced all kinds of paranormal activity. And they were even featured on My Ghost Story for that weird shadow figure that they see in the vat room that they call the Creeper. Unfortunately, we haven't captured him on visual, but we have captured a few EVPs that correlate to sightings of the shadow figure.
I've seen a few pictures of the shadow figure as well, and it's pretty interesting. And that's what I'm saying. There's so many different types of activity there. I know we've encountered a little boy there. I think I've seen a little girl running around there as well. Little boy seems to be more popular. He's been seeing a lot more people. The Creeper, of course, the alien. That's pretty interesting. And like you said, I was walking around out by the truck and on the other areas and stuff, like where the fields were. And there's different types of activity out there. Well, everywhere you go, there's like a different feeling and different sensations happening. And when I'm out there, it feels like maybe it was a bunch of workers who loved to be there or the people that cared about the place. It's almost like you're walking around and people are still doing whatever it was they loved to do back in those days at that location, because it's such a great spot.
Yeah, it's almost like a local hangout for spirits. It's weird.
Yeah, why not? I mean, you're cruising around that neighborhood. That's the coolest place to hang out, so I would hang out there too.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. And, Don always gets great evidence. He's always playing it back with a little amplifier, so that's definitely cool. I know he's got a lot of activity up in the loft as well.
Mhm. Yeah, that loft, the little side room in the loft is a special place too. I've captured some really good EVP there in the past as well.
Yeah, that's what they say. The little kid likes to run and sit in where that chair is in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty interesting, because we were in there, and that's what I was saying. It's a tiny little place, and it's warm that time of year, and you can feel the cold breeze passing by you or going around you. That's pretty cool stuff. That's why I kept calling out to him saying, come stand over here, because we were all dying from the heat. It's crazy. So, other places you've been to more recently, what about your experiences at Virginia City?
Virginia City is an incredible place to investigate. I mean, virtually the entire town is a place lost in time, but it's so active, with tourism and even just paranormal activity. I mean, everywhere you go, you could experience, some form of paranormal activity. But as far as the places we've investigated there, and I believe you've been there on both occasions, was for Douglas Carnahan's Virginia City Paracons. Both last year and this year were the times that we've gone. So we've investigated the Wash, or had a chance to investigate the Washoe Millionaires Club, the Mackey Mansion, the old St. Mary's Hospital, and the Fourth Ward School. I think of all those places, to me, the most active was the old St. Mary's Hospital last year. And I don't know if you remember this. We were in that large room, I think it was on the first floor, and we had the toys set out on the center of the floor, and we were kind of picking up on spirit activity of a young girl, and we were trying to get her to play the toys that we had. We actually ended up capturing some EVPs of her basically replying to a couple of our questions. I remember asking, we had a bear in a truck set up in the center of the room, and I asked something along the lines of, do you like the bear or do you like the truck? And then immediately after I asked the question, you hear a little girl's voice say, bear. Just say the word bear. But it was so clear, and I'll have to post it on my website. I know I have it posted on my YouTube channel, where you can view all the evidence that we end up capturing. I always post my stuff online for people to, take a look at. But that was one of the coolest EVPs. And then it seems like on every floor of that place we had various forms of activity. I know my wife actually captured a really cool EVP. She was on the third floor, I believe, and she was in a room by herself, and she was trying to ask, what the spirit's name is, and very clearly, but in an undertone, you hear a male voice reply, Kathy brought someone with her. And if you know my wife, her name is Cassandra. But very clearly, you see the EVP saying Kathy brought someone with her. And it was one of the coolest EVPs we've ever captured, because generally with EVP, it's only one or two words. This was a full sentence. And it was intelligently acknowledging that she was in the room. Who they were talking about as far as who she brought with her in that room, it could have been a spirit guide, I'm not sure. And the weird thing about me and the paranormal is that the turnaround from skeptic to believer has been gradual, but the more and more I do investigations and look at these old, the history behind the haunt, it seems like the paranormal activity becomes stronger and more prevalent. I've noticed that activity picks up. Now, there have been places that we've gone to that have had no activity whatsoever, but the majority of locations that we've gone to, specifically Virginia City, which is one of the most haunted locations in general that we've ever been to, the activity just picks up and picks up. I think most recently in the last Paracon that we went to, I don't know if I told you this, but we were at the Mackey Mansion, and we were in the garden area, and I had this really weird negative experience with some shadow figure that just seemed to, I don't know, it was really weird. We were in the gazebo, and we were standing in the center. We had a recorder running, and we were just looking around, and I saw next to the gazebo, about 20 feet away, there's this shed where I guess they keep tools and whatnot. On the top of the roof, when I was looking, and this is at night, of course. You recall that night. But on the roof, I saw a man sitting on the roof, and he was wearing these old, like the old railroad workers' clothes that they would wear. It's a sort of
interesting,
scraggly, puffy pants and the button-up white shirts, and then they'd have the brimmed hat. So I see this guy on the roof, and I'm like, whoa, you're not supposed to be there. And just as soon as I see him, and it was only for a few seconds, he disappears, and then this large shadow figure appears in front of the gazebo. Not in the gazebo, but in front of it, along the little bush area that's next to it. And it was probably the tallest thing I've ever seen in my life. This thing was a dark shadow man, and it stood probably 8 to 9 feet tall. And that's not an exaggeration. That's just how large this thing was. It was very intimidating. And so I would see him, and then he would move around the gazebo, but incredibly fast. And if you watch my, I actually did a podcast after the Virginia City Paracon where I revealed some of the EVPs that we caught. We actually caught a couple of EVPs in the gazebo when the shadow figure activity was happening. And it's funny because I recall that when I saw him move, he was so fast that I was referring to him as the Flash, just jokingly referring to him as the Flash. And I got this overwhelming feeling like he just did not like me at all. Like he had a problem with me in general. And when at some point, I say something like, yeah, this guy's like, the freaking Flash. And you hear a male voice come through saying, you keep taunting me, but like really deep and really angry. You hear a clear voice say, you keep taunting me. If you want to hear the EVP, you can go right on to honoredmario.com and go under the Paranormal Files tab and click on the one that says Virginia City, and you'll find the EVP. It's posted on there, but it's definitely a Class A EVP that we caught there.
Awesome. I mean, I know there's been a lot of reports of that shadow figure running around the gardens, but I haven't had anyone have any kind of experience like that. But to get an EVP of him talking back to you, I mean, that's incredible stuff.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is it's not the only EVP that we caught. We actually captured a second EVP that came, I would say, about a minute before the EVP of the male voice. And the first EVP that we captured, I was kind of contemplating as to why this shadow figure person didn't like me. There was a reason that he just was put off by me. And I thought, well, maybe it's my tattoos, because I have tattoos on my arms. And I figured, well, at that time, they didn't really have tattoos, so that's probably something that they wouldn't find, they would find a little overbearing, in other words. So I think I said something like, I think he doesn't like my tattoos. And you hear a female voice come in after I say that, saying they make him angry. And it's weird because it's a female voice that replies, but the only female in that vicinity was my wife, and she was standing right next to me. And it wasn't her voice, so it was someone else's voice that was intelligently replying. But yeah, the Mackey Mansion and the property around it has a lot of activity going. And I recall that that night we also investigated the 4th Ward school, and you and I were in I think it was one of the classrooms that we were in, and I remember you and I were seeing this kind of getting in our heads that there was this like female teacher or instructor that was pacing left and right on the back wall, along the back wall, like as if she was trying to teach a class or something. When I went back and reviewed the audio, right before I go to pick up the recorder to leave to a different room, there's like a male voice, a Class A EVP, of a male voice that comes through saying, "Help my God." And it's one of the clearest Class A EVPs I've ever captured in the last 2.5 years that we've been doing this. But, that one's also posted on the site if you're interested in listening to it. But, there's something incredibly fascinating about the paranormal world, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm fully a believer or if because there are a lot of things that can be explained away. It's kind of a hit or miss with the paranormal world. Yeah,
there's no set schedule. You never know what's going to happen. Even with private investigations, people will call and they'll say this is going on, and it sounds crazy and incredible. And you go over there and nothing's happening, because the environment might not be right. I mean, the entities might not be there at that time. I mean, who knows? That's why we call it the unknown. We're always searching for these answers, and sometimes that's the case. And as soon as you pack up and leave, then sometimes something happens. I've been on plenty of investigations, setting up, getting ready, and we start hearing right in front of us disembodied voices coming from the room right in front of us. And we haven't hit record yet. And then we hit record and nothing will happen all night long. It's like, really? Or we'll set in a place all night long doing stuff, and then we pack up, and we're finally getting ready to leave. We're about to it was me, Tara, and somebody else on my team, about to walk out. And all of a sudden we hear this female's voice right in front of us start talking to another ghost, another spirit, saying, "Oh, I'm so glad they're finally getting out of here and walking away." And like, she was just talking smack about us leaving to somebody. We could hear her. I'm like, really? And then my other investigator looks at Tara and goes, "Are you saying anything?" And she's like, "No." And we hear a woman's voice, and Tara's the only woman in the room. And like, dude, that was crazy. So we stood there. And we're like, "Come on, really? After all this time, you're not gonna do that?" Aww. So it was pretty funny, and that's how it works sometimes. You never know. Yeah. There have been a couple of times where we've had personal experiences with the paranormal, and they weren't captured on any recorders, and they're great nonetheless. All right, check it out. We were talking about that EVP that Mario caught that is at, I think it was the 4th Ward School in Virginia City. Yeah. And I am going to attempt to play it over the air for you guys. So. All right, cool. Hold on. Now go ahead and tell them who's in the room right now. Well, I think it was me, you, my wife, and this girl named Katie. And then there were a couple of other people, but they weren't in that area that you and I were at or where the recorder was. They were more to the entrance. And the thing about the clip is you can hear everyone else in the background, and this particular EVP comes in over all of that sound. And it wasn't tagged, and it wasn't heard at the time at all. It sounds like someone's trying to, like, talk to somebody and not let us know, like how they kind of mouth words. So you can hear us talking, but then you hear over the words exactly that. It sounds like "Help Me God." So we're gonna play it right now and see if you guys can hear it. So here we go. Good. Live radio. Cool. Yeah. When I walked over here, I felt something Now you can hear it right there at the end. It's definitely focused on the word God. So I'm going to play it one more time. All right, here we go again. Yeah. When I walked over here, I felt something Yeah, I can hear that fine. That's cool.
Yeah.
If I wasn't talking so much, you could probably hear it better. But it's funny.
Yeah.
If we're talking about what we're feeling, and he says that. It's funny.
Yeah, I got chills again listening to it because I recall that moment, and no one was near that recorder when that happened. So, yeah, that has to be in my top 5 captures that I've ever had in these investigations. So, it's definitely one of the best. I would say top 3.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very cool. Well, since I know that works, let's see if we can play another one here. Got some good ones up here. All right, now here's one that is from the McKay spare room. Are you familiar with them? You said it's a Class A?
Yeah, that one was weird because that one was, I think it was inside of the crib that I had the recorder at. And, it was in the McKay spare room, and there's a crib, and I had the recorder in there, and it almost sounds like a female voice screaming the word no. And it's not like it wasn't like a scream of, like, terror. It was more like a scream of despair or surprise. It's hard to figure, but it comes right at the end of the clip, and it's very quick, so hopefully it'll come through.
Yeah, I'll try to play it right now. You guys out there listening, you're listening to My Darkest Hour right here on LiveParanormal.com and History FM Radio. Tonight my guest has been Haunted Mario Bernal. Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right, cool. And he's the host of the Haunted Mario Paranormal Podcast. We're talking about paranormal experiences and listening back to some EVPs. Now, I'm about to play an EVP from the John McKay mansion up in the spare room, which he just described. So we're going to load that one up and see how it goes. Here we go, guys. Listen for the no.
Who stayed in this room?
One more time.
Who stayed in this room? Who stayed in this room?
Yeah, right there in the background.
Yeah, that one's tough to hear, but if you listen closely, right after I ask who stayed in this room, you hear a no. It's very weird. I don't know who or how that came through, and no one in that room heard it at the time because we would have tagged it. It wasn't a voice from outside either. So, yeah, very strange EVP that we captured there. And actually, that's the only EVP that we caught inside the mansion. All the other EVPs were captured outside.
No.
Yeah, it's true. I hear the McKay mansion's haunted by the Colonel and some other random people, but like people are trying to make contact with Mrs. McKay's wife and John, and most people that have done their research know that John hardly was ever there. He only visited there and he's checking on business. And his wife was never there because she hated that place. She stayed at their big mansion back east and stuff, where all the luxuries were at.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, Virginia City was still a developing town, so she wanted to be around all the dirt and digging and stuff. But here's I want to try to play the Garden EVPs about him saying that you're taunting him or one of these.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Here we go.
No, that's the tattoos.
Oh yeah.
No, that's the tattoos.
Now what's he saying right there?
Now, I say something like, yeah, it's the tattoos. And after I say that, you hear a female voice come through saying they make him angry. So that's
cool.
the best I can hear from
that's
that.
a tattoo.
Yeah, it's almost like she's whispering it to you.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a whisper that comes through. You hear everyone else in the background talking, and this voice just comes through over that, saying they make him angry. Referring to my tattoos, of course.
Wow. Let's try the gazebo one. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. This guy's like a fucking Flash.
Now, where was he saying you're talking to me at the very end there?
Yeah, right at the very end. So you hear me using profanity, but saying that he's like the freaking Flash, and then after that you hear the male voice say, "You keep taunting me."
Yeah, at the very end. You hear him say taunting.
Yeah.
I guess he must have been upset with your tattoos. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, he was upset about something. He definitely didn't want me in that area. But from what I've heard, or for what I was told, there is that this shadow figure is very protective of the garden area or the property. I don't know if he was maybe a groundskeeper. To the best of my knowledge, that's the entity that I was interacting with, or that was basically trying to get me out of the area. And it's funny because I was the only one that was feeling that way. And we were in a group of about 10 people, and they were off in a different area of the garden with Dawn Staggs, and they were doing an EVP session elsewhere. And it was just me, my wife, and one of the other lead investigators in the gazebo at that moment. So for those voices, those EVPs to come through the way that they did, I mean, there was no explanation behind them, and it definitely wasn't the rest of the group, because they weren't paying attention to what we were talking about. So why would they reply intelligently to a conversation that's going on between two people in an area where they aren't at, which boosts the credibility of the EVP for me and makes me classify it as true paranormal activity. And that's one thing that I do when I investigate, is I always try to explain away as much as I can. And whatever I'm left with that I can't explain at all is what I present as paranormal activity or a true paranormal experience. So that's what I like to bring to the table when I go on an investigation.
I think that's extremely important. There's too many people out there that go into investigations or even just places that are rumored to be haunted, and they go in there and they're influenced by any little thing, and they're too quick to jump to everything's a haunted, everything's a ghost. You know, they don't even try to prove it. But when you have good investigators and teams that go out there that sit there and spend the time to try to disprove it, well, then that's great, because there might be a solution. It might be the doors aren't closing on their own. Maybe they're just loose hinges, or wood is swelling or something. You know, there could be a million things to try to explain it, but you have to take that time and try to somewhat debunk the situation if you can.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what that's why I don't right off the bat believe things are occurring. I mean, I note them, I tag them, but it isn't until I fully analyze them that I come to the conclusion that it was or it wasn't paranormal in nature. And a lot of that has happened at various locations, and I think as great as Virginia City has been to me so far, in the places that we've been to, the most haunted location we've ever been to is the Glen Tavern Inn, and that's in Santa Paula, here in Southern California. It's about, if you're familiar with where Six Flags is, for those that don't know where the Glen Tavern Inn is, if you refer to Six Flags, it's about 30 miles west of Six Flags. But that place has incredible history, and every single floor of that inn is haunted. And no more than in the top floor, the hallway, and the last two rooms, 306 and 307. And boy, we've captured a lot of EVP there as well, from different, different entities, from kids to, women to male entities, and it's crazy. And we've seen apparitions. That's actually the only place that my wife and I have actually legitimately seen full body apparition, is at the Glen Tavern Inn. So,
and what floor was that? The first time we saw my wife, so we were at it was last year, and we were at this conference event with Debbie Constantino, and we were all in the third floor hallway, and we were conducting an EVP session with her and Chad Lindbergh. And at the end of the hallway, at the top of the stairs, my wife looks over and she sees a girl, like a little young girl, go from room 308 over to the landing of the stairs and disappear. And subsequently, while we were doing that EVP session, we actually captured some EVPs of children, of the girl's voice, saying, "Do you want to play?" Now, it's a Class D EVP. It's very faint, so it's not something that I readily post. I always post the best of the best as far as EVPs go. But that was an interesting correlating capture to that. The other apparition that we saw was on the first floor in the lobby. Now, I'm pretty sure you've been there, but the lobby has this restaurant connected to it, that's like an in-house restaurant. And so we were in the lobby, and it was probably around, 1 in the morning or so. And we're doing a huge group EVP session, and I'm snapping pictures of the lobby and of the group. And my wife, at that time, the tables of the restaurant area had been pushed all the way over into the corner, so they were all kind of just jumbled there, and they all still had their table covers draped over them. And so I'm snapping pictures, and my wife looks over and she says, "Hey, what's that kid doing there?" And I look over and I see this little like 5-year-old kid standing behind one of the tables, and he looks right at me, and then he ducks under the table. And so I quickly get up and I walk over there, and I pull back the table cover, and I'm looking, and there is no child there, and I just get the most weird chills I've ever experienced in my life. And the crazy part about it is it's 1 in the morning. Everyone in that inn is an adult. There are no children on the premises. So where did this child come from? And he was clear as day. It was like seeing an actual human, but not someone that was there. So it was one of the most incredible experiences. But nothing topped the experience that we had in room 307 that very same night. And go figure, this is all occurring on the same night on different levels. So
we were in room 307, which is purportedly the most haunted room at the inn, and I can attest to that. It definitely is. So we're in there, and this was after the main investigation was over, which was around 2:30 in the morning. We had been asked by some of the leads in the group to join them in an after-hours investigation with a much, much smaller group, and there were about 4 or 5 of us, the lead of which included Aaron Goodwin's sister, Amy Goodwin. And so we're in room 307, and the closet door is open. Now, if you know anything about the Glen Tavern Inn, one of the most famous hauntings stories is that there was a prostitute that was beheaded, and her body was stuffed in the closet. And back in the 1920s, when the inn was first built and created, the third floor was just an open area that was essentially turned into a gambling parlor, brothel, and a speakeasy for all the minor workers at the time. And that during the 1920s, it was the Prohibition era, so speakeasies were popular. So the story goes that, a prostitute was beheaded and her body was stuffed in the closet. So we're in there investigating. It's probably, at that point, it was almost 4 in the morning, and we're getting this really weird feeling, like this energy surge in the room. I can't even explain it because I had never felt something like that before, but it felt like some kind of swirling, I don't even want to call it EMF because it's not what it was, but it felt like this swirling energy in the room. And at that time, at that moment, my wife and I, our attention got drawn to the closet, and the closet door was open. And so we both look at the closet, and we see something in there. And at the moment, we kind of acknowledge that we see something in there, but we don't say what it is, and we don't talk about it. We just kind of give a nod to each other like, hey, there's something in there. The investigation ends, and it's the next day, and we leave the inn, and we're driving home, and I go, and I know, this is before even speaking to her about it, what I had seen inside the closet was a woman. And it was a woman dressed in 1920s garb, and she had her hair done up and whatnot, and she was just kind of standing there watching it. Didn't say anything, she was just standing there. And so I tell my wife, as we're driving home, I tell her, hey, did you see anything in the closet last night? And she's like, yeah, I saw a woman. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I was like, yeah, I saw a woman too. But that's basically all that we tell each other. And so we go home, and about a week passes, and this apparition that I saw in the closet just stays on my mind, and that's all I can think about. So I started trying to do some research and trying to find old residents of the inn to see if maybe I can find a picture. And unfortunately, I couldn't. Well, that day, I get home and I tell my wife, I say, all right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to write down what I saw, and you write down what you saw, and then we're going to switch, hand each other the papers and see if they match up. And we wrote down everything that we saw, and to a T, every single feature that we described was exactly the same. We both saw the same exact apparition. The woman, she had her hair done up in that old 1920s style. Her eyebrows were a little thick. She had pursed lips, kind of a pointed, sort of a pointed nose. She was wearing this white dress with like a V-neck cut on it, and the sleeves went all the way down to like her fingers. old 1920s garb, like I was describing. And so our descriptions are on point. And this gets me excited, so I start doing some more research. And my wife goes downstairs to get something to eat, and I'm online, and I come across a video. I think it's like a documentary video that Brandon Alvis and APRA did in regards to the Glen Tavern hauntings. 4 minutes into the video, they're talking about the woman who was beheaded in the closet, and you see a picture pop up, and it's the exact woman that I saw in the closet. And without saying anything to my wife, I pause the video, I call her up, I rewind it back to before the picture shows up, and I say, hey, watch this. And I press play, and as soon as the picture pops up, her jaw drops. She's like, that's her. That's the one that we saw. And it was like instant validation for us for a personal experience that we had. And about a year later, we ended up talking to Brandon Alvis about it, and he says, yeah, that was definitely a resident of the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula. So even though it was a year later, we got our complete validation of that personal experience.
Wow, that's awesome, though. That's more than coincidental. I mean, you're going back and forth, and you're both seeing the same thing at different times. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, how can that be any more than a chance? Because you're describing the same exact thing on two different nights. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And the Glen Tavern is extremely haunted. I know about the girl. I've investigated there, and I've seen her little tiny fingerprints on the mirror and stuff up there.
Yeah.
I know the story of the lady being beheaded. I know the full story about exactly what happened because it wasn't just a random thing. Somebody was getting revenge on the owner at the time about that because it was a gambling bet. It was a gambling game, a real serious gambling game that happened upstairs in 307. And the guy who lost all his money and stuff, so he left and he felt cheated. He came back for revenge, and the owner wasn't there when he came back, so he found his woman, who was the madam, upstairs, and he cut her head off, which eventually landed right where the desk is today, downstairs.
Wow, that's incredible. See, I didn't even know all of that.
Yeah, it's 20 minutes away from my house, and my friend was the night manager there for many years, so I've been there quite a bit.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's very interesting thing. Those who can get a chance to get out here and check it out, I definitely recommend it. It never fails. And the restaurant's really good, too, so because you guys are hungry.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guys have been listening to My Darkest Hour. My guest tonight has been Haunted Mario Bernal. Check out his podcast. It's live. It's paranormal podcast, the Haunted Mario, and you can check it out and go to www.hauntedmario.com. Listen to some of the EVPs we've played. Great website, all different kinds of stuff. See some of the pictures, the events that he's done and will be doing. So we've only got a couple minutes left. What do you have coming up in the future that people can be looking forward to?
Actually, in August, myself and my wife will be heading up to the San Francisco area. We'll be doing the Paracon up there, the Great Ghost Paracon, where we'll be investigating the USS Hornet. So if anyone is heading out there, we'll be there, and you can meet me and my wife, and and have a few drinks and stuff, and enjoy investigating out there. It's my first time investigating the USS Hornet. So that should be a great experience in itself. Other than that, if you're interested in ghost walk tours or even in other paranormal investigations, you can check out the group that I belong to is Haunted Orange County. So you can just go to hauntedoc.com. I know right now we're having a 50% off sale on the summer ghost walk tours. of downtown Orange and downtown Santa Ana. So you can check that out. As the weeks go along, I'll be adding more content to the Haunted Mario page. If you want a more daily update to all things paranormal, you can check out the Facebook page that I have for Haunted Mario. Just go to facebook.com/Haunted Mario HQ and give it a like, and you'll see daily content that I post about the paranormal.
Well, very cool, man. That sounds exciting, and I'll have to have you back on the show to give us some follow-ups on those events.
Definitely.
Hornet's going to be incredible. A lot of people tell me about great experiences there, and I've seen some fantastic photos. So, all right, man. Thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us about your story and telling us about some of those great experiences. I'm looking forward to hearing more about them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for having me on. It was definitely a pleasure, and to everyone listening, thank you for your support. Stefan Brigati is one hell of a guy, and I enjoy investigating with this dude everywhere that we meet up. So thank you very much, and I look forward to our next meeting.
Right on, man. I will see you soon, man. You guys have a good one.
All right, you have a good night.
All right, and that is going to be it for My Darkest Hour Radio right here on liveparanormal.com and History FM Radio. We will see you guys same time next week. Keep listening for more upcoming events. I'll keep you guys posted. And for those of you on Facebook, I will be putting the link to this show for those who want to archive it. In the meantime, thanks so much for spending time with me, and we'll see you guys next time.